Hello, everyone. It's Alysia Silberg, founder of the Global Fireside Chats and general partner at Street Global. I'm excited to be joined by Christian Meyers, my business partner in Street Global, for this edition of our weekly Entrepreneur Wednesdays Fireside Chat. Happy Wednesday and welcome to our 2018 look at new technologies driving innovation. In this fireside chat, we'll look at artificial intelligence, also known as AI, and its variants and how they are transforming industries and creating opportunities for entrepreneurs and investors. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are fields where researchers have worked for decades to build foundations. Now, because of networks and other resources, businesses and governments are quickening the pace of innovation and applying AI to build and improve industries and processes. The level of participation is increasing among entrepreneurs and investors. That's what we're exploring today. What's happening, the opportunities, trends, organizations, and issues at play in this great opportunity that will affect us all. I'm broadcasting to you from San Francisco, a place where I meet many entrepreneurs working to both build AI tools and apply AI to business opportunities in life sciences, transportation, business services, finance, and other industries. I'm very inspired by their example and hope this show furthers their efforts. I'm grateful to be joined by some incredibly special entrepreneurs, investors, researchers, thought leaders, and organizational leaders working in financial markets, media, government, corporate development, investing, and entrepreneurship, who are all taking their time to share their valuable insights so we can learn from them. For those of you who don't know, our topic for today is artificial intelligence and industries. A look at AI applied to specific industries. Now I've got your intro speak. Let me go ahead and introduce you to our VIP guests before asking them to introduce themselves to you. Welcome to California-based Karim Galil, who's a doctor and health tech entrepreneur. Welcome to Delhi-based Piyush Singh, who's a financial technology and digital strategist. Welcome to California-based Charles Haspel, who's an engineer and executive. Welcome to California-based Kuldeep Thacker, a technology and analytics expert. Welcome to Mumbai-based Pinaki Laskar, an AI and Internet of Things expert. Welcome to Maryland-based Mehdi Rizvi, a doctor and medical efficiency expert. And welcome to Israel-based Dekel Taliaz, a doctor, neuroscientist, AI, and health tech expert. Would each of you please like to go ahead and introduce yourselves to our community and tell them a little bit about what you're doing? Karim, please go ahead.
Oh, so this is Wael Salloum. I'm Karim's co-founder. I'm a co-founder of Mendel.ai and the chief science officer. So we are a Silicon Valley startup. We're working on bringing AI and specifically natural language processing to healthcare records. I'm basically, I got my PhD in natural language processing from Columbia. Was funded by 2 DARPA projects, and I've been developing software for the past 2 decades, and especially in artificial intelligence for about 13 years. And I was working on bringing AI and NLP to healthcare for the past 4 years in healthcare startups. Looking forward to talk to all of you guys and learn something new today.
Welcome. Very excited to have you join us, Wael. Piyush, please say hello to everyone.
Hi, all. This is Piyush Singh from Delhi. So I work as a fintech and digital transformation strategist. So currently I'm trying to explore that how artificial intelligence can be applied to financial services in a country where we consume approximately 1 billion GB data every month. So this has opened new way, and definitely artificial intelligence will be something big in India. And that's what we are trying to explore in financial sector, and how customers will react to this new thing. Look forward to interact with you all. Thank you.
Welcome, Piyush. Charles, please say hi to everyone.
Hi, my name is Charles Haspel. I have been doing software development for over 30 years. I am currently the co-founder of a company named Mop2.com. which is a social media site for articles. And we are working in terms of artificial intelligence on trying to address some of the issues with social media, like echo chambers and fake news.
Welcome, Charles. Super excited to have you join us. Kuldeep, please say hi to everyone.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is Kuldeep, and I work with Retail Automata Analytics. We are a big data analytics company working in the field of artificial intelligence, and our technology is mostly designed for the retail sector, considering the major pain points and the challenges involved in the retail space, where a lot of money is being spent, but the retailers are facing issues with the actual conversions. And basically it's all about understanding your customers, and unless customers are understood, they can't be helped. So that is where our predictive analytics technology actually help the retail space, and look forward to speaking with you all today. Thank you.
Welcome, Kuldeep. Mehdi, please say hi to everyone.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to join again. Alysia, Christian, Darren, thanks a lot for organizing this. I had a great time last time. So a quick intro about myself. I work at the Johns Hopkins Health System to optimize, the operations around the patient's clinical care. I have formal training as an MD and in healthcare management. And I try and leverage that with my consulting and entrepreneurial background to manage the creation, launch, and implementation of AI tools across the system. To accomplish this, I'm lucky enough to collaborate with not only, I think, the best medical minds in the world, but also some very brilliant data scientists. Thanks again. Pleasure to be here.
Welcome, Mehdi. I know we loved learning from you last year, and we're very excited to have you join us this year. Just before we jump into our VIP's questions and all the amazing things we're going to learn from them, a few important shout outs. On the screen are contact details for our panelists. Feel free to reach out to them. Please keep sending your questions through to inspireme@onlinefiresidechat.com, and we'll do our very best to always have them included and posed to our VIPs. Just a reminder, we have community champions and ever-growing meetup groups in over 60 countries around the globe. On that note, thank you to all our volunteer champions from around the globe. You are the heart of our community, and we wouldn't be here almost 2 years later if it wasn't for all of you. Over the next few months, and with all our help, our aim is to inspire and empower entrepreneurs in more than 100 countries. Together, we know we can make this happen. Thank you again to our growing family of supporters and collaborators from around the developing world. Once again, hosting sessions for hundreds of entrepreneurs who don't have access to the necessary bandwidth or understanding of the English language to join our sessions on their own. Thank you to all the government ministries, UN offices, US Embassy Corners, British Council offices, World Economic Forum, university campuses, schools, business incubators, Chamber of Commerce's, and community centers and radio stations for all your weekly hosting support. Thank you to everyone from our UN Women team. Once again, we're streaming across new live platforms today. If you'd like to share us with a community in your area, you'd like to broadcast from a radio station, feel free to reach out to us and let's make it happen. Now you're here to learn from the best, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Let's get started. So, to make our VIPs feel super comfortable, let's start off with an important question. How it's going to work is we're going to pose it to all of you, but we'll direct it at one of you. Please feel free to be 100% honest. We are here to learn from you. So our first question goes to Wael. Get ready, sit back, relax, and have a good time. So let's set the stage with some foundational concepts about AI. Please explain to us, what is AI in general?
So AI, basically, people think it basically stands for artificial intelligence. Although I kind of think of it as not specifically intelligence. So it's anything where basically AI starts where the deterministic programming ends, where you cannot sit down and write an algorithm that does this, if this, do that. So for example, when you create a robot for a snake that climbs a tree, that's not necessarily intelligence, but it's something that we cannot sit down and implement it because we don't know how. So it's basically the idea of building a machine that can by itself learn how to do things, as opposed to whatever that thing is. Could be intelligent, could be something that animals can do. but basically not with an expert who's sitting down and basically telling it what to do.
Thank you. Fascinating insights to start today's show. Charles, our next question is for you. What are the different types of AI? Please go ahead.
Well, in my experience, there's what was being explained before, where you're automating a task by allowing machine learning. In my field, it's a little less of in machine learning and a little more of that it's being used as sort of a filter. So you can build a set of rules to sort of clean up the social media conversation in terms of not, blocking out, say, obscene content and things like that. And then, I don't have experience in it, but there's obviously robotics and self-driving cars and things like that that are a step above in terms of what is required as far as the machine and the learning aspect of it.
Thank you so much, Charles. And our next question is for Mehdi. Mehdi, AI has been advancing for decades. What ingredients make AI viable for real-world applications today? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think, Charles and Wael really sort of gave you a perspective on when we do talk about AI, it turns out it is a sort of a broad term. And I think one of the key ingredients that has been part of AI advancing is, believe it or not, is the general perception on what is possible. So back in the day, we had issues where, AI was promising the moon, where, folks were saying in the 60s that it could beat the game of Go and beat people in the game of poker. And that really didn't happen. And now it's happening. So I think there is a certain optimism that is really pushing the way forward to, folks getting more involved in it. Anecdotally, I've heard graduation rates soar in data science. And companies, consulting companies such as GE and so on and so forth, partnering with healthcare systems like ours to give us the tools that we need to make the operations more efficient. So I think there is, number one, the whole perception, then number two, a need. In other industries, just like the hospital industries, we have realized that we have reached a saturation point on what we can and cannot do, and we can't just throw money at the solution. So now there's a real need to be efficient. How do you do that? Well, you use tools like AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehdi. And I know Christian had some thoughts he wanted to share here. Please go ahead, Christian.
Thank you, Alysia. Just to recap, because this is a very important topic that's going to reshape technology and how technology is used in business. We heard from panelists that artificial intelligence, also known as AI, is software programming that can learn and behave in a way that's not pre-programmed. The other things we heard from the panelists are that AI is not necessarily general intelligence or something similar to human intelligence. It can be very task specific. And so we see AI programs that are answering questions like Watson, engaged in image recognition, or as Charles mentioned, used in social media to recognize language or phrases that's not appropriate, or in transportation for navigation. So AI, as we see it today, applied in startups and business, is often very task specific, and it's also industry specific, which, as we know, is the topic of this conversation, and I'm really looking forward to learning more. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Our next question goes to Kuldeep. Let's talk about industries and business processes. Kuldeep, what industries are you personally studying when it comes to applying AI? Please go ahead.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And definitely thank you so much for creating a background. And artificial intelligence is, in a way, a very broad term, but I think we need to look at application and use cases to specific industries. We are all surrounded by AI, whether we use it or not. Like right from the moment we pick up our phone, we have Siri, we have Google Assistant, we have an Alexa, and all these devices are around us, and we are constantly interacting with them. Is the intelligence that is built into these machines, and because of the amount of computing power which is available these days, it is very easy to process huge amount of data sets, and the amount of responses, or the responses that we are getting from these machines, are so human-like that we really feel that, okay, this is something which is the next big thing. And it is constantly evolving, especially if we consider the case of retail, for example. What is happening in retail is very, very interesting. The recent Amazon Go store that has been launched in Seattle is amazing, where you enter into the store, you pick up something from the shelf, and that's it, you walk out. And everything is happening in the background, and the user does not even feel that they have to kind of engage with the store. So it's frictionless commerce. That is what is happening. And at the same time, I think that is going to take over. And that's what every retailer is trying to bring in new technology to make or remove this friction from commerce to go away, so that people feel more engaged, people feel more empowered. And because it is conversational commerce that is coming in, and because of the predictive intelligence and the huge amount of data sets that are available these days with the retailers, a customer is actually getting the benefit out of it. I think it's a very, very broad topic, and I think as we move forward, I would like to share more as we go further. Thank you.
Thank you, Kuldeep. Piyush, I know you had some insights you wanted to share here. Please go ahead.
Sure. So I would represent, as I think I'm the only one person from India. So I would say that why artificial intelligence and why this is the right time that we should focus on artificial intelligence. I think that with us, data is the new oil. That's the famous saying now. And we, as data has become cheaper and now that has resulted in almost, I would say, 100 GB of data per month that Indians are consuming. And because of that, Facebook, WhatsApp, and other social media channels are creating more and more huge amount of data, which companies are analyzing. And by Jack Ma, he has rightly said that machines should actually start drinking data. So that is a kind of thing we are talking about, that because of this internet, because now more people are getting included into this digital inclusion, and they are creating a trail of their activities on the internet. And because of that structured data, artificial intelligence can now create or can be more valuable in the future.
Thank you, Piyush. Moving on to our next question, we're going to direct it at Wael. Could you please talk to us about the industries that you believe are ripe for transformation? Please go ahead.
Yeah, so for example, I think all industries will be changed by AI. Definitely, I think it's really powerful, that can transform any industry. I'd like to talk more about healthcare, which I'm in. Our startup works on bringing AI to healthcare. And I think, for example, healthcare in the US is 1/5 of the economy. Every $5 spent in the US, $1 out of that goes to healthcare. And 26% of that is actually administrative cost. So whenever you can automate a job like automatic coding or transcribing of medical dictations, you can automate those jobs. You can actually transform that industry. You can save costs, and you can get doctors or healthcare professionals to do the jobs that they like, not the bureaucracy. And also, you can help doctors give more informed decisions, because I've read that a doctor has to spend like 160 hours a week to just keep up with the literature, which is kind of impossible. They cannot do that. So you can basically use natural language processing on medical records and literature to provide the basically medical treatment recommendations to the doctor when they see the patient. So you can dig through the history of the patient, thousands of pages through AI in like a couple of minutes, and then provide the best recommendations for the doctor so the doctor can make the decision. All of that can be transformative with basically with AI.
Thank you so much. Let's talk about some business processes. Mehdi, we'd love to hear your thoughts here, and then Charles, we'd love to hear from you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think Piyush brought up a very interesting point, and that can really help us understand the transformation that's taking place right now, and that's based on data. That's something that we really didn't have before, but thanks to the digitization of records, we now have a lot of data. And in fact, now we are challenged with trying to figure out how do we deal with all this data that we have. But because of this, now we can really start to do some really cool things with the data we have. And Kuldeep brought up a very valid point, something that I can testify to firsthand, being in the healthcare field, of the leaning out of the processes involved. One thing I would caution, though, is the message sometimes tends to be that AI is there to replace a lot of the complex and cerebral tasks. I think we are far from it, especially when it comes to the clinical aspects. I think right now what we should really advertise AI is that it's a assistive tool. It's there to lend an assisting hand to all the admin folks and all the clinicians who are doing some very complex tasks. It's not a replacement. It's a tool to help make their work more efficient and hopefully easier.
I would agree with that, and especially dealing with a lot of data. It's very interesting that in some ways the AI tools that we have available are extremely good at sifting through data, but it's also interesting that they're not nearly as good as humans in some aspects. And an example of that is we've all received in the mail a piece of mail where our first name and last name are backwards, or that our first name is completely garbled. And that's really a product of the fact that machines don't understand the complexities of, oh, okay, Charles is clearly a first name in this case. And so I think that's one of the challenges, is using it as an assistive tool, as he said, and allowing the level of human intervention to continue to make everything clean and smooth.
Thank you, Charles. I know Christian had some thoughts he wanted to share around this topic. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Alysia. Well, what's striking to me is the panelists have emphasized the word data a lot in this conversation. And I think that's an important piece of the puzzle for understanding the real world application of artificial intelligence. It's a field where the models that companies are using today have been worked on and built for decades. But what's different today in unlocking the opportunity for entrepreneurs is we have networks, and attached to all of those networks, we have a lot of data sources. And then that data goes into the software so the software can learn, which is one of the early points that Wael mentioned. And that combination of data and learning is extremely valuable, so valuable that, as we also heard from the panelists, that corporate leaders and countries are comparing data and access to data to owning other strategic assets and resources, such as energy resources. So data is a big part of the puzzle that's making this all happen, because it can help software learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Our next question is for Wael. Let's talk about some examples of AI within industries. Can you share an example within healthcare and life sciences of AI that really excites you? Please go ahead.
Yes, so this is what I was talking about as well before. So, for example, in healthcare, that's the domain I'm working on. You can basically provide these kind of recommendations to doctors to create a super doctor by basically augmenting them with AI, not to replace them, but to give them, to sift through all literature and all medical history of a patient. So, for example, if some of the things we're working on is basically if you can process all these documents or scanned copies, like in healthcare, they send a lot of medical reports through fax machines to be HIPAA compliant, all of that. But then you end up with all these images that are not readable. So if you do OCR on them, but like this kind of like this OCR of 2018, not the old OCR, it's like a lot more complex. And you do a lot of knowledge representation, extracting that knowledge from medical records to represent a patient on a timeline. So you know that this patient was scheduled for this procedure now, and then later you know that he did this procedure, and you can make predictions on a timeline. Then you can actually provide a way for medical, for example, to match that patient to medical trials, to clinical trials. So, for example, there could be a question that is very sophisticated, like the patient, like an inclusion criteria for the patient to match the clinical trial by saying like that patient must have at least failed at most fail 2 lines of chemotherapy. Then the AI has to go dig through the whole medical history, which could be thousands of patients, to find that evidence. And that's something that healthcare professionals find really tedious to do, and we can replace that with AI. And it's sophisticated because it's really on a level of intelligence that is really complex now for the current technologies that we know about. So that's basically some of the stuff that we do, and that's some of the transformation that we can do to the healthcare industry.
Thank you, Wael. Piyush, could you give us an example from the finance industry? Please go ahead.
Sure. So I would say that artificial intelligence can help financial sector in case of anti-money laundering and to identify fraudsters. So in India, what is happening is that the technology is definitely helping people, but it has not gone, it has not penetrated to the last mile. Because of which, what is happening is that many vulnerable people are getting cheated, and because technology has, because it's definitely a knowledge asymmetry where somebody knows a lot about technology and somebody who doesn't know. But then when these people who have been mandated to work on a technology, because I'm sure that you must be aware that a lot of digitization is happening in India, and we are promoting Digital India. So what is happening is that they have to work on the technology, but they are not sure how to use it. So they are working on assisted mode. So what happens that my point is that artificial intelligence will actually track that how a particular customer is using or consuming financial services in his area, and if there is any deviation from that, it should immediately alert the connected devices or the connected departments, and can highlight that this is something which is not usual, and definitely it can take a triggered action which can help these vulnerable group from the monetary losses.
Thank you, Piyush.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Charles, let's talk about communications. Could you give a good example?
Sure. I'm in the social media industry, and there's a case where there's been a lot of attempts to use AI, some of it with very bad results. You have a tremendous amount of data flowing between people in the form of communication, and one of the ways in which it's been used previously has been to sort of filter content in a way that, in some cases is censorship, in some cases has tainted things like, for example, the election in the United States. So the difficulty is, how do you examine the data and allow it to the machines to help people in social media, but not push them in one direction or impede their ability to communicate. On my end, we are using it more toward being able to figure out, for example, if we post articles. So if you have an article that has no thumbnail to it, that does not get presented in certain contexts because it's undesirable for everyone involved. So we're doing it at a much more hands-off approach, but it is a very tricky path to walk because you want to allow it to help people, but not.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you so much. Kuldeep, moving on to the next question. Could you give us an example in terms of transportation, manufacturing, and consumer products that you'd like to share with us? Please go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I would love to share one example in transportation where how Google Maps is actually, or for example, any transportation app is making use of real-time data in order to help the users in reaching out from point A to point B. As we are growing, as the development is happening, the cities are growing rapidly. The technological transformation, the economic development has actually allowed individuals to have the resources that was not possible before. So a single person is using his own individual car, and the space is limited. The number of cars are growing by leaps and bounds. And this is where I believe artificial intelligence can really solve the problem, wherein what is happening. I just wanted to cite an example here. So let's say just after office time, everyone wants to leave at the same time. Everyone wants to reach at the same time. What if the amount of data, like everyone's time, if we are able to utilize data points, and if somehow using cloud computing or connected devices, if we are able to tackle this problem of traffic, it's going to be a huge game changer in saving the precious resources and the amount of time that goes into. And at the same time, I believe artificial intelligence is an enabler. I think we need to look at the pros and cons in both ways. And basically the pros are how we can utilize the available data in order to move forward in the positive direction, how artificial intelligence can actually help us in sustainable development, wherein artificial intelligence actually helps us in finding solutions to the existing problems that we have around us. And the problem can be anything. It can be wastage of energy resources. It can be wastage of time, some time because of the or let's say the unorganized data which is available, or data not being available in structured format. A lot of precious human resource goes into classifying data, analyzing it, finding insights about it. And that's where I believe artificial intelligence can really help the humans and in moving forward, and in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by United Nations also, because I think we have a huge responsibility moving forward, as we have already crossed 7 billion people, and I think it's going to exponentially rise. So the resources are limited, but we have to figure out a way how we can utilize artificial intelligence and different use cases in different industries to solve the major problems ahead of all of us.
Thank you so much. Mehdi, I know you're in DC. Would you just quickly like to share your thoughts in terms of government and security? Please go ahead.
Yeah, that's a loaded question, right? Because with all this beautiful data, especially as it relates to patient care, issues of privacy come up. And the only way to really get to the point where we are having a very accurate, predictive, analytical, outputs. The way we get to that is by just increasing the input of the number of data. And how do you do that? You do that by reaching over and collaborating with your peers in other healthcare industries. But as you can imagine, the healthcare laws in the U.S. are some of the most complicated and bureaucratic, than anywhere in the world. We got city, county, state, federal, and so on and so forth, layers of these. But I think a deeper issue is really it's trying to change the culture and understanding where the resistance comes from. I think it's not just with at the government level that there are issues of cultural transformation and acceptance of AI tools. I think it's even at something as micro as at a hospital unit level. Do you win over the trust of your fellow nursing staff, physicians, and the rest of the clinical staff and the admin folks in using AI tools? Well, the way you do that is by really understanding the culture and realizing and appreciating the differences in various industries and their culture, and then working with that, not ignoring that.
Thank you, Mehdi. And moving on to our next question. It's for you, Piyush. We'd love to hear how you are personally working with AI. Please go ahead.
I'm personally not directly, as in technology. I am not working on a technology of artificial intelligence, but yes, I am working as a thought leader that how artificial intelligence can work. Because in India, there is the data is not structured, and it is not still ready that we can apply artificial intelligence currently. And even if we do that, so it is just like kind of at a nascent stage, and it will not serve a lot of purpose. So we have started with something like a robo chat, or something like, as you said, self-driving car, something we are just trying to try up the idea. However, I wanted to add something on the Kuldeep's point of development. So when I say that artificial intelligence should also have a development agenda, so I was reading a few of the reports where it was said that whenever we want to collect the data from ground, we have to employ a lot of surveyors. They go to field and collect data. However, through satellites, now we can take an image from the world, and by identifying what are the resources in a particular village or an area, we can identify that what are the development parameters there. So definitely artificial intelligence will add a lot in terms of cost saving. But then definitely I will raise a few more questions, I think, in the second part and the further part of the discussion, that how this can actually create a lot of issues as well. So definitely, thank you so much.
Thank you, Piyush. I know Christian had some thoughts he wanted to share here. Please go ahead, Christian.
Thank you, Alysia, and thank you to the panelists. I think one of the things we're seeing in this conversation is the great breadth of applications for AI. We saw in healthcare how pattern recognition in patient records can help us see disease and treat people early. We can prevent fraud in finance. We can help people and vehicles navigate in transportation. And all of these things, again, what they have in common is large sets of data beyond humans, beyond human analysis, and patterns that lead to results that we use to guide our actions. But as the panelists have emphasized, there are implications. We might get results that we're not happy with, that reflect cultural biases. There may be questions of privacy at stake. So ethical considerations and cultural considerations are also a big part of AI applications in industries, not simply the business results. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. And our next question is for Wael. You at IndieBio, one of the world's top science accelerators. We'd love to hear from you. What are the opportunities for entrepreneurs in the AI space? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think, well, this is a really interesting question. The opportunities are infinite. I think AI can go into every domain and improve it, can automate a lot of tedious jobs that people don't like to do. And we can replace those jobs and give opportunities to people to do something that is more interesting. So I think that could be a possibility. I think about it, I compare it to the web. For example, when the web came out, people in developing countries got access to knowledge that otherwise anyone with like a computer and an internet connection could get access to knowledge that is available in top libraries. So that's what we call democratization of education. I hope that AI can lead us to democratization of really high-skilled jobs or high-skilled tasks. For example, democratization of healthcare. I hope that with AI you can get to, like, in developing countries, and you get a treatment recommendation that is on the level or comparable to what you get at top university in the US. I think that's what is really interesting about AI and the really good opportunities that it can come up with. But unfortunately, there are also other things that could be like surveillance and spying and bad things that can come up with AI. But all of it is opportunity. I hope that people actually follow the really good opportunities that will transform the world.
Thank you. And the next question is for Mehdi along this line. Mehdi, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs looking to pursue opportunities in this space?
Really try and understand your industry. I think that is the key here, because folks are getting savvy enough now to realize that when you say predictive analytics, back in the day that used to be the selling point. But as Kuldeep probably knows, it's one thing to promise it and one thing to deliver it. It's arguably one of the most complicated aspects of data science, predictive analytics. So the point is, folks, it's getting a bit more challenging to be able to sell yourself and to really create value for the industries you are trying to help. So really try and understand it. For example, from the hospital perspective, as an external engineer or as an external consultant, you really cannot appreciate the differences in clinical decision that take place at the ED versus the ones that take place on a general medical floor versus the ones that take place in the ICU. And for anyone to come in and really help out clinicians make a change and help them with the AI tools, it's almost compulsory for you to be able to understand and appreciate the subtleties and the differences.
Thank you, Mehdi. And going on what Mehdi was saying, Kuldeep, we'd love to hear from you. Piyush and Charles, we'd also love to hear from you. What mistakes do you see being made, and how can entrepreneurs avoid them? Kuldeep, please go ahead.
Yes, I would love to add my thoughts here. Yes, and again, as Mehdi has mentioned about this point, it's all about the industries and the use cases and the typical problems involved in every industry that can be solved. And if you look at from a perspective of users, I mean, data is everywhere. Technology has grown by leaps and bounds. How we can utilize the computing power available to solve the challenges and the problems around us. And if I have to look at a specific use case, I mean, I really want to see AI being utilized more in the healthcare space, where what if the current diagnostic techniques, maybe the doctors get more intelligence through use of data. I mean, the records and everything are available, but it does not. It's at times not available in structured format. Then misdiagnosis happens. So there are a lot of anomalies that I believe as artificial intelligence evolve. And again, there are pros and cons. Privacy concerns are there, and how much data do you want to share? Because unless and until data is being shared, diagnostic can't be done. I mean, the analytics can't be done. So it's all about having there's a very thin line, and I think that is where the policy making will come into play, which can actually make sure that artificial intelligence is being utilized in a more positive and constructive manner going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Kuldeep. Piyush, we'd love to hear from you as well in terms of the mistakes you see entrepreneurs making in terms of this industry and how they could avoid them. Please go ahead.
Sure. I think that the biggest mistake is that most of developing countries, we are not able to pick up the data in a structured format. However, so I would say definitely there's a digital divide. I would say the product divide. So there are somebody who is coming from a technology background trying to create something from the data, but the data available is not structured. But in order to create something out of it, they are just trying to read that data and trying to create something which may not be useful for the customer segment. So in developing countries, we definitely have to use data. However, we also need to interact with those customers to understand that, because data can only give you what of things, what has happened. But in order to know why something has happened, you need to interact with people. So I think in all the developing countries where we are not rich on data, we definitely have to try to put in context with the data as well. So artificial intelligence just on the data some time to develop in developing countries.
Thank you. And Charles, do you have any quick thoughts you'd like to share around this question before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I do. In social media, I think the dividing line and the mistake is to mistake using it for kind of patting people on the back rather than actually facilitating communication. And by that I'm by example, trying to use it to interact with a conversation is much different than introducing users to one another. And the introducing users to one another can only be viewed as in sort of a positive light, but using it to alter the conversation, that to me is a real negative.
Thank you so much, Charles. And I know Christian had some thoughts he wanted to share here for our community. Please go ahead, Christian.
Thank you, Alysia. Yes, just to recap and touch on points that might help entrepreneurs listening. In addition to cost savings, the applications of AI give you the ability to help the world, to bring financial resources to people that may not have them, or healthcare treatments to parts of the world that don't have access to those treatments. And as an entrepreneur, your job is very hard, harder than anyone can possibly imagine. Having a positive social mission embedded in what you're doing is a competitive advantage. On the challenging side, what we're seeing is sometimes entrepreneurs and startups overstate their AI capabilities to corporations and investors. And I would just caution everyone to be careful and accurate when describing your AI capabilities, because that really sets the tone. You're more than anything, you're not trying to impress them by overstating. You're trying to build trust by accurately stating your competencies. Inside the business, if you are building an AI-based business, just know that the best AI scientists and engineers are very hard to find and expensive. And that should be part of your business plan, how you're going to find them. And when you go to market, what we're seeing increasingly is that AI tools makers tend to have a difficult job of selling their tools. And companies that are based around solving a certain business process problem or industry problem have a much easier time to go to market, simply because the buyers, and I know we're going to talk about investors, can better understand what really distinguishes them, and they can understand that there's a real live business case that's going to result in revenues going into the business, a sustainable business that's growing to either serve them as customers or as investors and stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian. Mehdi, this next question is for you. Let's talk about investors. In your opinion, what is the general investing climate when it comes to AI? Please go ahead.
I think, it's right along the lines of what Charles said, in that the investors as well as the customers are becoming a bit more savvy to the potentials as well as the limitations of AI. So if I was to describe it in one word, it would be that it's cautious. So the investors are cautious of what you're telling them, what you're promising them. And as long as, again, along the lines of what Charles had stated, as long as you promise them, or at least try, you are saying that you can deliver a very specific task that your tool can help out with, that's not only doable, but it's also, frankly, it's believable. I think the phrase artificial intelligence sometimes really does a disservice to what these AI tools can really do, meaning that, they could be very good at doing a very specific task, but, we have to be cognizant of the fact that it's not an actual intelligence. So it's not really generalizable. And I think Charles brought up a point a little while back, talking about how AI tools are not really as good as humans. Well, that's true, and we need to always remember that. As an example, we can use AI to communicate with, let's say, the deaf population, deaf patient population, and using ASL. Well, that's all well and great, but what about a very specific situation where you have to deliver an emotionally loaded, diagnosis to that patient, such as they have terminal cancer? Is it really, ethical to have that news be delivered by an AI? Certainly not. You need an emotion. You need a human-to-human interaction in that case. So I think we need to be very cognizant of being able to know what the potential is, what the limitations are, and try and not boil the ocean and stick to a very specific task that the AI tools can help alleviate.
Very good advice. Thank you, Mehdi. Wael, in your opinion, what are investors looking for? Please go ahead.
Yes, so revenue. So that would be always interesting. In AI, so it basically, data is also very interesting. If you're collecting exclusive data that other people don't have access to, that is really interesting because you can handle it with AI now or with newer technologies later that we don't know about yet. But if you have access to that data, that's really interesting. And also AI algorithms, like basically what type of AI you're doing, what type of problems you're solving. Is that problem a real pain point? And is the person who is experiencing the pain, is that person actually a decision maker? Does that person, for the industry, unfortunately matter? Like, does they get paid a lot of money or not? Like the salary, all of that. If you're solving problems for people who are paid less, then that's less of a problem. I want to also actually agree with Mehdi and Charles on the points they made. I think this is a very important point that have been made multiple times in this call, which is basically the fact that you should not overstate your AI. You should always respect the domain that you're working in. So, like, I'm working in healthcare, and I agree with Mehdi on that you're not going to be replacing doctors. Delivering the information to the patient that you have cancer should not be AI, should not be a push notification on your phone. Obviously, you have to respect and empathize with the domain expert in that domain.
Thank you so much. In your opinion, Piyush, what are the gaps in the investing ecosystem? Please go ahead. We seem to have lost Piyush there for a minute. Kuldeep, would you like to answer that one? Please go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I believe AI, being a very broad term, wherever it is being utilized in whichever industry, it takes a lot of time to build a solution around it, a product around it, which can be utilized by the target audience again. And I believe that's where the key is. To build the technology, it takes time. Then to create a viable product or a solution around it takes time. And then it's all about reaching out and then offering that solution. So I think the gestation period for bringing an idea to an actual product or solution is a long period. And that's where I think investors can actually provide definitely the financials, but at the same time, they need to connect the entrepreneurs with the right individuals in the specific industries where the entrepreneurs can get the guidance and the right directions to move forward. Because unless and until the product is good enough, the solution is good enough, it's not going to be used. And that's where entrepreneurs feel that though they have spent enough time and resources that they had, it hasn't come to any fruition. So I believe that's where investors can play a major role in being the mentors and at the same time show the right path to the entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thank you, Kuldeep. Wael, you're doing some very cool stuff. In your opinion, what are the global hotspots where we can expect to see lots of investments in the space?
I think a lot of domains will be benefiting from this. I think the domains that have higher paid jobs like healthcare and maybe law firms, and even to some point people talk about investment. Those kind of things will get, like, I think, the most investment, more than like domains where you have less share of the economy.
Thank you, Wael. Charles, any thoughts you'd like to share in terms of the global hotspots? Anything you're noticing interesting around the space?
In my space, it tends to be dominated by the United States. The U.S. is really addicted to social media. We do have a global reach, and we are seeing an increase in some participation there. But right now we primarily see it in more in the U.S. than elsewhere.
Thank you so much. Piyush, I know we lost you there for a minute. Would you like to share your insights in terms of global hotspots, where you're seeing investments taking place in AI companies? Please go ahead.
Sure. So I think that the biggest investment in terms of artificial intelligence, as somebody rightly said, will be in healthcare, into supply chain management, in financial services. Automobiles will be a luxury, I would not say a necessity, but in online, for example, like Alexa for Amazon has done wonders. I mean, just by identifying, just by reading my data, they can suggest that what exactly I need to buy, at if I am in a different mood, that would recommend me so that I can buy that. So I see that to start with something like in online e-commerce, then it will go to healthcare. Automobile will be a luxury, definitely. So self-driving cars and all stuff. But banking and finance is something that I think that AI will first primarily focus on banking and financial services.
Thank you so much. And I know Christian had some thoughts he wanted to share here. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Alysia, and thank you to the panelists. So we were talking about investors and their participation in this space and how that relates to entrepreneurs. One of the most important things for entrepreneurs to keep in mind, especially if they're working in a hot area such as artificial intelligence, is the basics still matter. You need to be addressing a large market with ready buyers, a product that's truly differentiated. As the panelists mentioned, often that differentiation can come by accumulating a proprietary data set that no one else has. And when you are selling your company to investors, you need to make sure that if you're saying that you're accumulating a proprietary data set, you actually are. Likewise, if you're pitching yourself as an AI company with true knowledge, you need to be able to back that up by showing them team members who do have true knowledge. And if all of those fundamental things are true, then investors think this is a phenomenal opportunity. I mean, can you imagine solving problems that humans can't solve today, or replacing 1,000 people with 10 people inside a startup? That's a huge opportunity economically. And getting to the question of global hotspots, it's so strategic that we're seeing entire venture funds such as SoftBank focus on artificial intelligence applications. And we're seeing countries like China invest tremendous resources because they believe that this will not only create economic advantages, it's going to create geopolitical advantages that are going to be on par with having the most advanced weaponry and the most advanced security. So I would just say it's important for entrepreneurs to recognize where the hotspots are and plug themselves into ecosystems. And I also know that we have government leaders on the phone, and it's important to be mindful of what your peers are doing in this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Let's talk quickly about large corporations. We'd love to hear from Piyush, Wael, and Mehdi in terms of big corporates and what is their role of large corporates in the AI ecosystem, both large tech companies and non-tech companies. I know Piyush also had some thoughts in terms of governments, so we'd love to hear from you around that too. Piyush, please go ahead.
Sure. So as somebody raised a concern that artificial intelligence will be a cool thing to do, and definitely a lot of non-serious things can be given to machines. So my concern is that what we call as a non-cool things, or which is things which are not cool, in many other developing countries, these are kind of a source of income for somebody. So if we are trying to outsource these to a machine, so my concern is that what will happen with those people who cannot upgrade themselves or upskill themselves on these skills, because one, they do not have money to go to for different courses, and definitely no company would like to invest on those people to teach them how to get involved into the digital inclusion. So I think government should also protect the right and of those non-skilled laborers. And I think the large corporations, as far as large corporation concerned, definitely they are picking up data from different sources. So I will not comment on what are the legal sources, what is non-legal sources, what data is taken from my consent and what is taken from implied consent or from consent from multiple mobile applications. So definitely that needs to be taken care of. Government should protect the data. And recently, when across globe data privacy is gaining ground and everybody's talking about data privacy, I'm sure that government should pay heed to that, so that in order to increase the efficiency, you are not kind of grabbing somebody's privacy. So that's what my concern is. And one last question I would like to ask the entire panel, that when does this artificial intelligence stops, I would say, stop serving us and start manipulating us? So, for example, once they learn about us, they can easily manipulate our ideas and our thought process. So I would like to hear from the panel on that also.
Thank you, Piyush. Wael, please go ahead and share your insights.
Yeah, so I agree with Piyush on everything. Actually, this is a serious problem that we see as we work on it, and it's a conflict that we have as AI scientists, that we're working on something that will transform the world, but also it might have a really bad aspect. For large corporation, I see if I'm talking about their role in what they can contribute, I think they can contribute by democratizing AI, by contributing more to open source. And they are already doing this, like whether Google or Facebook, they're contributing libraries to the research community. For non-tech companies, like banks or other companies, I think I have two perspectives on this as a scientist and as an entrepreneur. As a scientist, I would like to see them anonymize their data for their for privacy purposes, and then release it to the research community to do a lot of research on it, because that pushes the actual innovation in AI. As an entrepreneur, sometimes it's more interesting to have exclusive access to data, so that you only can work on it and develop algorithms. But I would, for the better of science and the economy, I think we should go with releasing data to people to work on. So basically, tech companies should release open source, and non-tech should release data to play with.
Thank you so much, Mehdi. What are your thoughts here? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of really good points here. I think Piyush, brought up a very interesting question of, about AI possibly manipulating us. I think, unfortunately, if especially when we're not careful, it's already happening, in the sense that the data that we put in to these algorithms and machines that we design, oftentimes we forget that the data itself is biased, not on part of the machine, but on part of us. So say that we have certain treatment regimens and we differ in how we treat. I mean, opioid epidemic is a perfect example, where it's been proven that, physicians, because of their personal biases, they are less or more likely to prescribe pain medications based on the ethnicity of the patient. So if we put in this data into the machine and algorithms and then ask the algorithm to tell us, which patient is more likely to be prescribed certain medications, well, lo and behold, those outputs are themselves biased because it was the biased data that went in there. So I think it's very important to be careful of the hidden biases that are designed into the algorithms and machines unintentionally.
Thank you, Mehdi. And I believe Piyush has some thoughts he wants to share here as well. Please go ahead, Piyush, and go and share.
So when you said that the data is biased, right? And okay, I just want to raise one other question. So when we say that these machines are learning and they are now becoming artificially intelligent, so when I would just correlate this with, there are some good people and there are also some bad people. So is there a possibility that there could be some good machines and there could be some bad machines? And when everything is interconnected, can a good machine learn from a bad machine? So how are you going to protect that even if you are creating a machine, artificial intelligent machine, like let's take an example of Sophia. So how would you protect that it is not getting biased or is not getting affected by a different machine, which has got a biased database?
Thank you so much, Piyush. Christian, I know you had some thoughts before we move on to our next question. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Alysia. Well, we were talking about large corporations in their role in the AI market and ecosystem. And as the panelists have commented, they're doing a lot to further it by providing platforms that startups and other companies can build upon. The other aspect of it is large corporations tend to have very large data sets. So for entrepreneurs looking at different spaces, an important question will be, is a given large company going to be a customer, partner, or competitor? And people are asking questions such as, how deeply into healthcare will companies like Google get, because they are amassing very large data sets that can be used in that space? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian. Now let's go wild. Mehdi, paint us a picture of the future. How does AI need to evolve and what does our future look like? Please go ahead.
I think the future looks very, very bright. I think a lot of cool possibilities are around the corner. I think, first of all, it's going to start with a larger pool of folks acquiring AI skills. I mean, we've already seen an uptick in that. And once you have a larger pool, inevitably you're going to have a larger collection of very highly skilled and capable individuals who are going to be participating in the field. I think the future is going to be, more along the lines of augmenting very cerebral and complex tasks, as Wael said a little while back. Super doctor, I love that. I really hope Wael can one day make me a super doctor. But
you're already a super doctor.
But to be able to get there, another point that Wael made is that we have to really get buy-in from the decision makers. In my specific example, we have to get buy-in from physicians who understand the potential and the limitations of AI, are really enthusiastic, but also have some clout in the organization to push for the change. So great future as long as you can get buy-in.
Thank you, Mehdi. Moving on from what you were saying, while talking about painting an exciting future, how do you believe AI will ultimately transform business in, say, the next 20 years?
Yeah, I think it will transform society in general. I think AI will be more like math. So it will get into every domain. You will study it in college, but then you will not call yourself an AI scientist. So I don't call myself a mathematician. I use math all the time. Also, economists use math, physicists use math. They just don't call themselves mathematicians. I think it's going to go more toward like computational biology and computational linguistics. But then you're going to lose the computational, like we lost the E in like email. We just say mail now. We don't use the E thing. It's just everything is electronic. And I think everything will be AI, but it's going to be part of a tool. It's just a tool that you use to do your job. So doctors will be doing AI, will be running AI experiments. But now instead, when a doctor writes a paper handling like 800 patients, now they can just compose an algorithm that from pieces, from components that will run on 10 million patients worldwide. And they will get better insights and better research out of it.
Thank you. Piyush, tell us what you think it means for entrepreneurs and investors, and please keep your answers short. Unfortunately, we are running out of time.
Sure, I will be. Thank you. So I definitely think that the future of artificial intelligence is great. And I also see that it will work as a plug and play model. That means even a smaller organization who wants to take the benefit of artificial intelligence doesn't have to create everything on its own. They can just take something from an organization which is specialized into it and just plug into their system and start working on it. So that's where, and I think entrepreneurs will be very happy. I mean, almost all the technologists. And now organizations will also start looking at, I would say, return on artificial intelligence. So we used to calculate only return on investment. Now we have to calculate return on artificial intelligence when AI is becoming the new UI, I would say, user interface.
Thank you. Kuldeep, what do you believe it means for geopolitics?
Yes, absolutely. And I think artificial intelligence is going to be an enabler to individuals. And it's just a matter of designing use cases where the individual problems as well as geopolitical problems that can be solved, like the scarcity of resources, I think that can be easily solved by proper utilizing the efficient computing power available in artificial intelligence. I mean, if resources are available, there are plenty, but it's at time the inefficient or inoptimal usage of those resources that leads to kind of chaos. And at that, I believe artificial intelligence is going to address that problem if we are able to draw policies, if governments are able to kind of from the very beginning that they are able to define the policies for technologists, for entrepreneurs who are building solutions around them, so that in the longer run, it can help everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Kuldeep. Charles, what do you think it means for society? Please keep your answer short.
I think one of the main things it means for society is hopefully bringing us closer together and fostering relationships with people who we wouldn't otherwise have had a relationship with.
Thank you so much. Now, our favorite part of the show, we could go around our panel and ask each of our VIPs what industries excite you and what do you believe are ripe for disruption. And please keep your answer super, super, super short because we're here to learn from you and we want to think about what comes first to mind for you. So, Wael, what industries excite you and what industries are ripe for disruption in 2018? Please go for it.
I think healthcare. I think that's the domain I'm working on. And I think that's a huge part of the economy, and there's a huge potential for improvement and disruption there.
Thank you so much. Piyush, go for it.
I think that the finance and e-commerce will be the hottest topic in which investments will flow in, and many of the startups will try to pitch in because these are the most low-hanging fruit where a lot of data is available.
Thank you, Charles.
I would say that what excites me most is gaming, and in terms of disruptive, I would say my industry because it's so young and companies like ours are doing completely different things with social media.
Thank you, Kuldeep.
I believe retail and healthcare is going to be the major industries where we'll see huge disruption moving forward. And because of the available data points, I think these are the two most interesting sectors.
Thank you, Mehdi.
Healthcare. Could you have guessed that? And specifically healthcare delivery.
Thank you, Christian.
Definitely healthcare, because we have many new tools and resources.
Thank you, Christian. While we ask our VIPs to prep their tweet piece of advice so we can all go and become AI geniuses just like them. Thank you to everyone for joining us for an absolutely amazing show. Thank you also to our unsung hero, Darren, who produces and leads our tech week in and week out. Thank you again for an amazing, incredible learning session to our VIP guests, just to keep you up to date on our upcoming sessions with some of the world's best joining us again as panelists. Next week, we've got data and new tools, how data and our tools for applying it are creating opportunities and changing our lives. Then on February 21st, we have sensory enhancements and human augmentation for health, work, experience, performance, and more. Do keep us up to date on all your exciting news. You can email us at inspireme@onlinefiresidechat.com. You can find me as well as our VIPs and champions on LinkedIn. Don't forget, if you enjoyed today's show, you learned a lot, keep reminding your friends to join us because we are trying to reach our 100-country goal. Now, let's ask our VIPs to share their tweet piece of advice. Wael, what's your tweet piece of advice?
Well, an advice for basically for entrepreneurs, I would say that just don't oversell your AI, as other people have said, and don't promise things that you cannot deliver.
Spectacular advice, Piyush.
I would say that definitely artificial intelligence has a future, but then please keep context to this data as well and start aggregating something which is non-data as well. So definitely put a context to this data.
Thank you, Charles.
Let AI help you connect and share information.
Thank you, Kuldeep.
Let artificial intelligence and data solve the real world problems. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehdi.
Healthcare, think augmentation, not replacement.
I love it. Christian.
Always remember the business fundamentals, even in a hot spot like AI. Thank you.
Said like a true investor, my tweet piece of advice, be grateful for everything you have. We're living in exciting but scary times, and it's a privilege to be an entrepreneur, to build our dreams. And we're very lucky to have friends, family, and amazing, extraordinary panelists like the ones we have joining us today. Never take it for granted. Thank you again to everyone. Have a truly amazing week. As our VIPs would probably tell you, remember to keep hustling and never, ever, ever give up. On the count of 3, I'm going to ask our VIPs to all shout bye. 1, 2, 3. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.